Hi, this is Damien AtHope, and I'm an axiological atheist. Um, I wanted to do a video. I made a blog for this as well, and I got inspired because I just had recently two different interviews with a great friend of mine, Corey, who also I show with on this channel, and doing the different videos. This isn't supposed to be somehow, instead of those. This is just like an adjunct or, my own thoughts in general. So the biggest thing is I want people to understand is I became something different than my childhood created. I was extremely abused as a child and lived in rough neighborhoods and experienced gang violence and other types of violence. And anyways, the most important thing though is that I am not the thing that abuse made. I strive very hard now to be a good human, just in general. I try to like gauge all of my behavior with, am I being a good human? Because maybe for some people, that's a given that they're going to do, good things. It's not really a given with me. My natural inclination is just to do whatever I want selfishly. That also may be a prominent belief or attitude of a lot of people. I'm not saying that somehow I'm special in being selfish, but I think I am special in the fact that even though I have a tendency to be selfish, I strive to do the opposite. In other words, and I've said this before, that I try to be more than my nature. So I feel like some people like, well, I'm just this way, so I have to act this way. I don't buy that. There's people that, can choose to be negative, toxic people, and there's people that can choose to not be. Whether or not your personality is prone towards being negative and toxic, it's still a choice. And I choose to strive to be a good human. That's just a simple goal that I have that, like I said, arches out my political, my social, my sexual, my everything. I strive to put it in the frame of, am I being a good person? How I interact with people. Like, I don't like to go on and on attacking people. And even though I have the ability to challenge people brutally, and I generally don't, because it's not the kind of person I want to be. I don't want to use my power to hurt others. I want to use my power to help. I'm an axiological thinker, and people may not know what this is. Axiology is the philosophy or philosophic study of value. And value to an axiologist is not limited to one type of thing. It's like just what is valuable could be what is good, what is true, what is accurate, what is beneficial, what is quality, and beauty. Any kind of thing that where you're evaluating things in a sense. It includes questions about nature, classification of values, and what kind of things are valuable and why. It is intimately connected with other, obviously, philosophic fields, whether they know it or not, that especially that take, in a sense, a dependence on a notion of value, things that people don't even think of, like ethics, morality, you know, aesthetics, even feminist philosophy, even the philosophy of religion, whatever you're analyzing things, but it also has to do with epistemology, like truth and what is real, and like when it comes to ontology, what is really a thing, what classifies that, how do you evaluate and judge that. And it's closely related also to value theory, which is in a sense the philosophical use of axiology in a general sense, instead of formal axiology, which is like a social science that uses axiology in a scientific way. But it also, is very important for metaethics, how we, in a sense, analyze ethically what is ethics and how we can make these judgments. So to go back then, as an axiological thinker, I'm motivated by value. And in this context of my thinking towards my own life and towards the life of others is humanity, human rights, truth, justice, quality, freedom, dignity. Not just, for me, not like just terms like even anarchist or socialist or whatever, not just these terms in some abstract thing, but the actual qualities and values that are inside them. So for me, leftist thinking is very similar to my goals. And thus I say I'm a leftist, just like I say my goals are very similar to anarchism. So I say an anarchist because the qualities inherent in them I can value judge are the same qualities that I desire. And I also see as what it is to be a good person. Seeing everyone as equal, treating everyone with dignity. For me, it's about caring about the value involved or being related. Like I said, I'm a leftist. In fact, I'm a far leftist, And to me, there's a real problem with what is the left, because people that are Democrats that could be even neoliberals call themselves the left, and when they're actually more conservative. And even possibly, some of the people call themselves progressives, and other people think that they're somehow the radical far left. They're not even that. They're like often just centrists in a real plotting on a political map. To me, this really, though, creates this illusion between these two generalized status quo groups of Democrats and Republicans, where the Republicans are far right and the Democrats are just, in a sense, right or center. And yet they're being called the left. This to me, though, is actually doing a disservice to the left. Especially to me when they say that people are radical left when they're only called, progressives, and those progressives only plot as being centrists. The real radical left is not even being acknowledged. And I think that this is actually, creating a harm to the left. But I still think the Democrats are better than the Republicans because they seem to care a little bit more about the human rights issues. And they actually pander a little to the poor, where I see the Republicans are more than happy to pander to the rich openly. That doesn't mean that I, in a sense, like what either of them are doing, but I see that there is a somewhat difference. But I'm closer to an anarcho-communist. I think that we should radically be doing different stuff, in our society, and radically different stuff, in a good society. Because when people say the society, you think it's civilized or somehow better than something else, barbarism or whatever. So to me, but what does that take? Isn't it not barbarism to let humans starve in the streets and act like it's not our social responsibility to care for everyone? The fact that we allow old people to suffer and youth to suffer and children to die, the fact that we don't make it a priority. These people say that they're pro-life. Do they make it a priority to make sure every child is fed, every child has access to education, to medicine? It's really, to me, way beyond, like some people, that think that anarchists just don't want to pay taxes. The whole system is fucked. Taxes is just a small issue that I actually have less problem with than I have with the fact that under capitalism, you lose most of your, in a sense, labor value. And then on top of that, if that wasn't even bad enough, then tons of companies do wage theft, where they actually have you work and you don't get paid. You don't get paid. I've worked plenty of jobs where you should get paid overtime, but I don't get paid overtime. Or you should get paid time and a half, but I don't get it. And there's also, to me, wage slavery, paying wages so low, and including some jobs. Like I had one job where I was a truck driver and I was getting paid, I think it was, I don't know, $12, $14 an hour. I can't remember now exactly. But anyways, it was 14. Anyways, I drove and then there was an accident. So I had to park, in a sense, waiting for the accident on the highway. And it took, I don't know, like an hour or two. I think it took 2 hours. So they only decided they were going to pay me half wages for me sitting in the truck because I wasn't then doing my actual job. And the state of Oregon, being a right to work state, said they could do this. I found it to be, I was raging pissed off. I just found that to be, in a sense, wage slavery or wage theft. Either they stole my wages or it's absolutely, immoral that they're able to just pay me half because they felt that sitting in traffic was not my job as a driver. Anyways, to me, but there's not like I mine special. They do this in general. Capitalism does not just do this one thing of wages. They do this wage slavery, and then they do wage theft, and then they try to not pay you benefits, and then the whole thing is just, it's vile. And then they're even worse is then them and society somehow looks down if you don't make a high enough wage. And the whole thing is just sickening to me. So it's not limited to one type of thing. And although my closest match is anarcho-communism when I took a test, it's not something that I would have even probably chosen for myself. And then I'm also 97% council communism. And I'm also 91% eco-anarchism. And I'm also orthodox Marxism of 89%. But what's interesting, because a lot of people think of me as, having utopian, views because I'm a far leftist. But my utopian socialism, I come out as 0%. I have nothing to do. My thinking has nothing to do with that. So I don't test at that, being that kind of a person. And I really feel like it's like the centrists get to decide what is somehow utopian, where they to me, the centrists are okay with a dystopian, this unhealthy, ethical world. Like somehow, if I want to have ethics in society and ethics in our monetary system and ethics in our labor system, somehow that is just too much. And ethics in how we behave and treat people, it's just, it's crazy talk. Or what I think is also interesting, or they'll agree with everything I say, they just don't actually do anything to make it happen. And I'm not trying to just put down centrists. I think that they're still a lot better than far rightists, who I feel are my absolute fucking enemies. Ones that can look at this world and actually want it to be worse than what it is. It boggles my mind. What kind of vile person, what kind of self-loathing do you must have inside of yourself, to think that that's good? Or the other thing, that some people are victims. I used to be a rightist, and I was an angry person. I thought the world sucks and it suffers, and I just need to take as much as I can get. And that to me was a very selfish time of my life. But a little more about anarchism to me, like most anarchism, or most anarchists, I should say, at least the ones that I know about, because I'm not saying there's not tons of stuff I may not know. I'm not all knowing. But I am not for states, not for borders or nations. To me, all these things are arbitrary. These things cut us off and almost instill in us like an unjustified love for a small group and an acceptable disdain or non-love for a large group like the rest of society. I care, though, about all people in every place that's called, a nation or not a nation. I want support and solidarity with humanity, all of them. Why should I hate a person who I don't even know in a place that I've never been? You could say, why should I love them? Well, I feel like it's easier for me to love them when I understand that we're all connected. We all have value. And just think, would I feel like an American if I had been born in China? I would have felt Chinese, probably. Not, or if I was born in Europe or born in Africa. So is it really that we're going to accept that just this accident of birth or place, allows us to be separated from everyone else? I find this to be an illusion. Various anarchist thoughts have formed, though, throughout the anarchism struggle. And the struggle to me is not to force anarchism, it's to remove this force, in a sense, non-anarchism society. Society didn't start with hierarchy. Hierarchy is something new. And I have videos where I explain and talk about this. Historically, animism is the first, in a sense, religious persuasion or, type of thinking. And animism, it's often associated, if you look at the cultures, with more anarchist type of ideas. Totemism gets less, anarchism, but still holds on to a socialism. And then shamanism, to me, comes next. And shamanism almost goes back to a more of an anarchist type of thing, depending on how much it does or does not have totemism and relating to it. But even then, it's really, to me, and that I see totemism, to me, coming about 50,000 years ago to 40,000. And then shamanism somewhere around, could be 30,000, or so, and spreading all over. But it's really, to me, not until agriculture. It's not till these shaman, totemistic animists, in a sense, start developing God, start developing, a deeper connection with, plants and storage. And why the plants can end up being, in a sense, this bringer of hierarchy is because when you're a hunter-gatherer, you don't really get, a lot of surplus. It's not like that if you kill an animal or you grab a few things that it all stays and and lasts forever. Even nuts and stuff, it's hard to hoard that. And then especially if you're on the move, if you're constantly not sedentary, it's just not very practical. And so you can see that in prehistory, though, that there's not really a big thing of not only just not hierarchy, there's not a big thing of power structures the same, and there's not a big thing on slavery. It's really after agriculture, you get a big influx of slavery, power structures, hierarchy. You get this new thing. And to me, this is about, starting maybe 12, 11,000 years ago, that this really starts becoming a thing. And then it just keeps getting progressively worse. And then by 7,000 years ago, it's even more extensive. In fact, male-based clans are fighting each other for dominance, both of land and power and of women. It gets to a place where it's like 17 women to one man in most of the the earth. And this is not, in a sense, human nature. This is human toxic, spreading like a cancer. And to me, this is where, anarchism was really, in a sense, stamped out by violence. And so it's not that I don't think that humans have a propensity to be selfish and to be self-seeking and self-glorifying. But this is not a human nature, trait, and to the point that it was always there. This rampant, like in capitalism, just unchecked selfishness is really a new type of a thing. I'm a socialist, mutualist, collectivist, anarchist. I support anarchist objectives like eco and green anarchism, as well as anarcho-naturalism. And for me, that would also include social nudism. But there's other anarchist, in a sense, objectives that I support, like in general, doing relationship anarchism. And for me, I don't limit relationship anarchism to anarchist dating or something. It's just a non-hierarchical way I try to interact with all people. I just feel it's a healthy way to see yourself as equals and to treat others as if they matter. And just non-hierarchical ways of structuring even friends and whatever. But also for me, I'm in an open relationship in a sense with my relationship anarchism is also non-monogamy. But that's not with everybody. But even when I do non-monogamy, I still try to do it in a sense, a non-hierarchical type of a way. It's just who I am. But I also support queer anarchism because I am intersex and genderqueer. And thus, I feel a connection to that too. I probably would be this anarcho, in a sense, queer supporter anyways, just like I support anarcho-feminism. I feel like this is an important thing to have. And I also, for me, a big thing is my humanist anarchism, which, to simplify what it kind of means to me, is no gods, no masters, do no harm, and do good. And for me, this is an important aspect. I strive to do good, not just the lack of doing bad. Some people are proud of themselves when they just don't, in a sense, do bad. But I don't get that much pride from just not doing bad. There's people that have lived their whole lives and not done anything bad. But how many people have done good to actively go and do that which is good? That to me is really important. That's why I feel like my humanist persuasion also tells me how better to interact with people, to not just be self-serving or ego or monetary or power, but to do it from a place of care. And speaking of care, I'm an atheist. In fact, I'm a very, very strong atheist. But I'm not for forced atheism, because once again, that would be against my thinking, both as an anarchist and as a humanist. Anarchist, because I believe everyone owns himself, and humanist, we should treat others as dignity. And, my anti-theism is opposed to theism, just as my anti-religionism is opposed to religion. Both are to be understood as against ideas, in the sense behaviors, not people. My position is not for forced atheism or anti-theism or anti-religionism. In a sense, it's my goal to fight the lies of theism and expose the harm of religion. But I'm for secularism. I'm for the freedom of religion and for the freedom from religion. In other words, people shouldn't be forcing their religion on others. And for me, that includes children. Children own themselves. They should not be able to be indoctrinated. I don't think there's anything wrong with telling anyone, this is what I think, but then demanding they think like you. Like if I had a child, and I would not demand them be an anarchist. I would tell them why it makes sense. I would tell them what the great things I think about it. Same with being a socialist. I would tell them why and what the great things I think. And if that's not enough to persuade them, then that's their choice. I feel no different for religion. You don't own your kids. They themselves should have religious freedom, not somehow the parental or caregiver's religious freedom to oppress the child and their religious freedom. But this also goes back to, in a sense, the non-hierarchical relationship anarchy that I support. And for those who are unfamiliar with relationship anarchy, it's the application of anarchist principles to intimate relationships. And it values things like autonomy, anti-hierarchical practices, anti-normativity, and community interdependence. And commonly, like I said, for me and for a lot of others, is non-monogamous. Of course, this is not have to, though. This is why it's not called, to me, and it would be wrong to be called, anarchist dating. However, it needs to be made clear also that relationship anarchy is not simply a different phrase for anarchist dating, like I've already said, because it doesn't have to involve sex or even romantic relationships, but simply it is a different way of interacting with others, in a sense, in a thoughtful way, just like I strive to be a good human. So thus it is distinct from things like polyamory or solo poly or swinging or other forms of dating specific, because they also can include structures, of, in a sense, normativity or assumptions that relationships have to be one way or not one way. Anarchism, in a sense, is a political philosophy that is skeptical of all the justifications for authority and seeks to abolish the institutions maintaining unnecessary coercion and hierarchy. Now, this doesn't just limit to governments. I think it should be done in the family. It should be done with your friends. But typically, it's not limited to things like governments, nation states, and capitalism. It could be beyond this. And I feel like this is epitomized in relationship anarchy. Humans have lived in societies without formal hierarchies long before the establishment of formal states, realms, empires, and the like. Anarchism advocates a skepticism towards authority, hierarchy, and the coercion that arose in all these things. Although traces of anarchist thought and themes can be found throughout history, the sense modern anarchism emerged from the area of the Enlightenment, you could say. And the anarchist movement flourished in most parts of the world and had a significant role in many workers' struggles for emancipation. And it still does. And that also includes most struggles for human rights as well. Anarchism advocates for the replacement of the state with a stateless society. This is important because it's the difference between anarchism as a political goal and just anarchism as just a behavior. It's not just that there are no more states. It's that we replace it with a society that benefits all without the state and other forms of free association. Anarchism started, and to me still is, largely a left-wing movement. And usually it could be seen as the farthest left in the political spectrum. And I think that there's, important for it to be, like some people think anti-state, but also really it's for workers' rights, because work is often this will-crushing burden, because of wage slavery and wage theft supported by the capitalist system, where you give your life so the elites of wealth can live better lives while you barely survive or only meagerly survive. And even if you have the glory of somehow making it to where you can feel comfortable, you still have to live in a system that your comfort generally is followed by others' discomfort. I was a right-winger Christian. And I was mainly this until I turned atheist at 35. But it wasn't really until I was 41 when I was told that my thoughts were anarchism. I didn't even know, never looked it up on my own. It was something told to me that I looked it up. And then from there, it wasn't really until experiencing anarcho-capitalists that made me realize that I was distinctly a socialist. I just kind of thought that I was already an anarchist, and that just was part of it. But I realized I needed to clarify this at 42. And the most important thing, though, is I am not the thing that abuse made. I strive to be a good human. I'm an atheist, an anarchist, socialist, humanist, and humanitarian. Being a humanist is extremely important to me. So much so that it is a driving force in my political thinking. And that is why I call myself an anarcho-humanist. And someone once said to me that leftists want to make white people feel guilty. No. We want all of us to understand the injustices of the past, including the ones of the present, so that we can acknowledge the truth of the wrongs done and strive to stop injustices. But some white people hear about injustices done by white people, and instead of championing change, they seem to want to make excuses. Well, that is something you should feel guilty about. Making excuses for injustice. And with that, I will go ahead and I will end this live chat or whatever, end stream.